From a territory to a state, Nebraska is celebrating its 150th birthday this year, and K&B Ag will be looking back throughout the year at the farmers, ranchers, technology, and more, which grew the panhandle of Nebraska to what it is today. Dawes County was created in 1885. Many of the towns in Nebraska grew up because of a railroad. Crawford, one of the towns in Dawes County, grew up from a tent city near Fort Robinson. The town was named after Lieutenant Emmett Crawford, who was killed in Mexico and had been stationed at the fort. Jim Soyster, curator for the Crawford Historical Society and Museum, tells us about his great-grandfather, John N. Brewer, and how the town was quite wild and woolly in the beginning.
The town has kind of a checkered history. I was reading one article out of an old newspaper here that somebody observed that the town had 7 churches, 7 bars, and 7 houses of prostitution, and 1 grocery store. The original tent town was part of my great-grandfather's doing. He drove a dray wagon from Valentine up to Fort Robinson, a supply wagon. He was a bootlegger. My great-granddad was a bootlegger too, and he made his bootleg up the canyon up here, up Dead Man. And so he would bring the hooch down to his tent where he had set up some kegs and some boards, and his customers came in, and he had the first bar.
Crawford also had famous people roam through it as it was growing, Jules Sandos and Calamity Jane among them. Soyster says his great-granddad and Calamity even shared a tent business before Brewer became a dapper fellow.
He had finally decided he needed to be respectable. He was on the city council and the bank board and oh my, this, that, and the other thing, you know, a very dapper man. And he then took over the bar that's closed down here on the corner. It was a 2-story building. The top story was connected to the hotel, which was one of the first of the other buildings.
Nebraska's only railroad tunnel, the Belmont Tunnel, built in 1889. Soyster gives us more information on it.
Burlington came up from the south, and they got up as far as Belmont, and it was this massive outcropping, granite outcropping. They couldn't go around it because of the canyons. They couldn't go over it because of the angle, and so they just had to go through it. And they blasted the tunnel through. It's a little less than a mile through the tunnel. And they blasted it through, made pretty good time on it because, like I say, it was just 3 years after the rest of things settled down that the Burlington came through.
Crawford is one of 5 towns in Dawes County. It has one of the larger livestock sales in the Panhandle at the Crawford Livestock Market and is predominantly cattle country. 150 years of Nebraska agriculture is sponsored by Kelly Bean, proud to be a tri-state region tradition for 90 years. We'll be right back with more K&B news after the break.